attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet out. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirsho here. And now, whenever we last left off, we had Izuku Midoriya. After him and Toga went out to mess around with his quirk, he discovered All For One. And they were talking. All For One gave Midoriya an offer. He can give him a quirk. He simply just needs to tell him what the quirk is. And he can have it. Now, Midoriya was actually very interested in this idea, in this offer. The idea of a quirk. However, if All For One can give and take quirks, there is a chance that he will just try and take his own. So, it would be a very risky gamble. And Midoriya currently is staring at the phone number that he knows is All For One's contact information. Thinking, he can ask All For One about it. If All For One does agree to give him a quirk, that would be good and fun. However, the idea is that All For One could possibly even take his own quirk. Then again, Midoriya trying to spitball in his head. A quirk. What would be a good one? Possibly one just like Toga's. Something that could either disguise her or do something. She's able to copy another person's physical appearance. That would be good. That would possibly be the best that he can get. Something like that. It'd be easier to lure in targets. And put them into a false sense of security. Then again, he is also thinking. Now, some time does pass, and Midoriya does look into different pro heroes. If the quirks don't look interesting, he writes them down. If he does see massive drawbacks to having them and or possible suspicions he can get from simply having a quirk, then he simply just scribbles it out. And does at least put it into a separate page. Now, as he is doing that, we have roughly about 2 days before the entrance exam. It's been 5 days. And Midoriya, he decides to give All For One a call with the list he has made. Now, All For One, he smiles at the thought of his phone ringing. The boys finally called. And he simply just picks it up. Why, hello, young man. What type of quirk will you give me? Ah, straight to the chase, are we? Well, what are you talking about? Well, from what I know, as Midoriya begins to think, okay, All For One does not know his quirk, so he does have somewhat of an advantage here. Beginning to ask All For One, is there any physical mutations he can get from a quirk? Young man, that is not how it works. If a person carries a physical mutation, I can remove the aspect of the quirk. However, I cannot give your body that mutation. I believe that would either gradually happen on its own, or instantly. In fact, well, that depends on exactly how much variety is in that quirk. Exactly what do you want? Well, I've been thinking. There are some pro heroes I have on my list. their quirks are useful. And I was wondering, what would happen if you took someone who has a fully euthanized quirk? Well, if I were to give you their quirk, your body simply might not manifest the mutations. If the quirk has nothing to do with the mutation, you should be perfectly fine. Interesting. Okay, now you have me a bit more interested. But young man, exactly what is your quirk? Oh, my quirk is simple. I have the ability to create illusions. That's it. Yes, nothing more, nothing less. I can create illusions based off of somebody's past. Think of it as I can look into your head and see things you probably wouldn't want other people to see. Loved ones, people you hate, or at least dead people. I believe in some cases, yes. Like that woman I believe it was the other day. What did you call her? That woman was Nana Shimura. She's dead. Yep, perfect example. Anyways, do you want me to go over my list? Actually, yes. Now, Midoriya begins to go over it. All for one somewhat intrigued by some of the names he hears thrown out. And then there is the one Midoriya does list off. There's two. Some of his targets are in the top 10, and currently might be a bit too suspicious to go after. However, they can go after them now, and possibly even get them by surprise. However, he does want to try something different. If they are going to make a message, they need to pick apart the top 10 all at once. And they need to start with All Might. Now, Midoriya then goes on stating that he wants to go after the pro hero, Gang Orca. Really? That man? And why do you want his quirk? Well, think about it. I can blast sound waves at somebody. The quirk can be pretty useful. Along with the fact that, if we simply just toss him out to sea, and or possibly just throw him back, he might not even realize he's missing. He might just think that there's something faulty going on with himself. Plus, people could just call him crazy. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that I have that quirk. I see. Well now, your plan does sound good. But you do not have to worry about him simply just sounding crazy. All we need is a sample of his blood. That's it. Why yes, that's it. You sound surprised. I kind of am. Usually, I thought that it would just take bringing him in and executing him. I don't really know how it all works. Now, with that being said, All for One does have Karagiri. Go directly over to Midoriya's house, teleport him in, and then bring Toga. Now, once Toga does arrive, they do actually somewhat begin preparations. The entire plan is simple. They have Muscular. This giant dumb idiot is going to cause some chaos. Once the battle starts, he's going to try and fight against Gang Orca. And once that does happen, they are going to go in. Try and get a piece of blood, or at least a sample of blood, and get away. Then Muscular can simply just be teleported away. Other than that, it all should go perfectly fine. Now, as people can probably already tell, it doesn't. Muscular's on this team. Yay. Now, after they are teleported over to the city they need to be at, this is what happens. Muscular jumps in. He begins to cover his body with muscle fibers, and his arms and his lower back leading down to his legs. As soon as he does that, he does actually begin to make a bit of chaos. Now, after that does happen, after a truck is thrown through Gang Orca's office, eventually the pro heroes do begin to intervene. Lower level heroes, they've already been killed, and the ones who weren't strong enough to deal with Muscular were crushed into a red paste. Now, with that being said, Gang Orca and his guys do begin to try and attack, try and go in, and simply take him down. Now, Gang Orca begins to use his quirk. And Muscular, he just simply gets hit by it over and over again. Pissing him off more, he just begins to cover his body in more muscle fibers. And they begin to battle. Muscular throwing civilians, cars, trucks, lampposts, you really name it, all at Gang Orca. Him trying to catch them or dodge them. And it being down to simply just one thing. More pros are showing up. And they still haven't gotten the blood. So Midoriya does one thing. He begins to create illusions. Gang Orca, he looks up, hearing a sound for 1 second. As soon as he does that, he turns around. Surprised to see, well, let's just say, a loved one who was deceased. As soon as he sees them, he is surprised, then swiftly hit by a bus, as he gets sent flying into a wall. Muscular just jumping in and directly smashing through the bus, ripping through it. Civilians scurrying to get out, and others simply just being killed in the chaos. Before you do have Muscular throwing punches directly at Orca in his face, and blood beginning to fly everywhere. As soon as that does happen, Midoriya does actually run around the corner. He already did have a hoodie pulled over his face, but he simply just does one thing. As Gang Orca tries to use his quirk against Muscular, Midoriya jabs a needle directly down into the side of his arm, and begins to extract a very large amount of blood. Gang Orca wincing in pain and turning his head to see the needle. As soon as he does that, Muscular, he tries to get Gang Orca's attention more, deciding to try and throw him across the area. As soon as he does that, Midoriya has to pull the needle out. And as soon as he does begin to pull, he actually does tear the side of Gang Orca's arm, a large gash forming in the wake. Now, after that does happen, Gang Orca does actually look down at his arm and see this hole. Midoriya just looking at this vial, or at least this giant syringe full of it, and say that their job is done. No, not yet. I'm still having some fun. Besides, kid, what's your quirk? Don't worry about it. Now, Midoriya says, putting his hands up and creating illusions. Civilians. Midoriya swiftly going on to state that if they have any wrong moves, Midoriya says bringing his hand up and snapping his fingers, fire beginning to form around them, saying that he'll fry them all alive. As a portal begins to open behind them, this surprising Muscular. Kirigiri teleported some of these people, right? But the kid has a fire quirk. Interesting. Now, as they do back into the portal, the people do run over, trying to help out the illusions. As soon as the guy does bring his hand up and try and touch one, it simply just begins to laugh, turning its head before basically turning into dust in the wind, leaving the men confused as to what that was. Now, with that being said, Midoriya does arrive, and All For One is surprised as to exactly how much blood Midoriya got. He didn't know how much All For One would need, so he took as much as the syringe could hold. And after swiftly giving the syringe to the doctor, and talking with All For One a bit more, Midoriya does actually give a blood sample. All For One can simply just take his quirk if he wanted to. So, might as well just give him the quirk. The doctor gets a blood sample from Midoriya, and All For One begins to talk with him, explaining it a bit more before, after roughly a full day, Midoriya does get the quirk implanted. And surprise, surprise, it hurt like a bitch. Now, after this does happen, Midoriya actually does try and use the quirk, finding it to be a bit odd. He can throw sound waves directly out of his forehead. Then, there's the fact that whenever he does try and use a bit more, he can actually somewhat throw it out of the palm of his hands. It's a very weird quirk. He's guessing since, well, Gang Orca's body is a lot bigger, the quirk had an easier time focusing in the head. However, the quirk is quickly trying to change and adapt to Midoriya's body. So that is actually pretty interesting. Depending on if you lack mutations, the quirks can change. Huh. Midoriya just thinking, he can keep a note on that. As he does actually try and get used to this. The next day, he heads to the entrance exam. And, surprise, surprise, there's an asshole, Bakugo Katsuki. Bakugo simply just trying to avoid Midoriya. However, the two do need to sit next to each other. And Bakugo is kind of confused, watching Midoriya write down his name before Midoriya does actually go to put down his quirk. As soon as Midoriya moves his hand down to that portion, he does actually look up and think. Midoriya, he's just thinking for a second. Should he go with Illusions or Gang Orca's quirk? Easily he could get away with Illusions. Someone's eyes playing tricks on them. But yeah, Gang Orca's quirk. Let's see. Midoriya, just thinking that he'll leave that blank for now. Going on to the other questions. Somewhat surprising Bakugo. Midoriya was going to write something down. What was it? And that kind of does tick him off. Midoriya quickly getting done with the test before walking away. And forgetting, as I say that in air quotes, to fill in the quirk portion. Now, after that does happen, Midoriya does actually head over to where the testing area is. And he is trying to get through the crowd. Ida does not stop him, and Midoriya, he does get to the front, watching as there is a girl standing next to him who is actually somewhat nervous and trying to basically calm herself down. Midoriya decides to walk over. As soon as he begins to head in her direction, someone does try and grab him by his shoulder. Midoriya quickly just grabbing their hand and basically just throwing it off of him. Looking behind him to see Ida. Midoriya gives Ida a glare before telling him no. Don't touch me like that. Before just walking away, ignoring Ida, who, after a few seconds of Midoriya not listening to him, realizes exactly how much of a fool he sounds. And Midoriya does actually try to talk to Ochako. She seems to be, more or less, in somewhat of a frail state of mind, as he would put it. She's not very confident in herself, she lacks the idea of it. And she herself does not believe that she will get to Niue. Now, Midoriya actually does ask her, hey, excuse me? Huh? Oh, sorry, am I in your way? No, not really. In fact, I wanted to say you looked pretty nervous. Oh, yeah, it's only like my entire future. You know, I don't know really how to say it. Say what? Well, it's just, I want to be a pro hero. Okay, then be a pro hero. It's not that easy. Yeah, it is. Think about it like this. UA is a school for heroes. Yeah, it's the best school. It's the highest rated school. But even then, that's just what it is, a school. A school for heroes. If you want to get in, you can go in through any school. Go in through what? The school that's on the other side of town, the one that's closer by, you name it. You're just trying to get into UA, right? Because it would be what? Better for your hero career name? Most of the top 10 guys went to UA, including All Might. It doesn't matter. Huh? Yeah. Am I about right? What? Or is it just that you're not confident in your quirk? That you don't believe you'll get in there? That you don't believe that you'll get into Class 1A or 1B, from what I know. Even Class 1A, or UA in its entirety. Oh, well, it's just that. It's just what? It's not that simple? Of course it is. You're overcomplicating things because you're simply just thinking about it while nervous. If you look at things from a calm point of view, then you'll be perfectly fine. Even then, shit happens. You just gotta get over it. Midoriya basically assuring Ochako that she'll get in. And then there she stands, with a bit more confidence in herself. And then it's 3, 2, 1, begin. And Midoriya begins to walk around. With his body's level of physical fitness, he can use Gang Orca's quirk through his hands quite easily. And the recoil doesn't really affect him very much. He just needs to make sure to stay underneath roughly about, what is it? 50% in this quirk can at least look different from his. And he can avoid the side effects. Now, when Oya is blasting through his palms, he actually does take down a few robots. And then there is Toga. She herself thought she can take the entrance exam. And she's right now just doing it because she can. She doesn't care if she gets in. Hey, it's fun. Now, with that being said, Midoriya does score a few points, and he is currently thinking. Back inside that room, they talked about villain points. So there's obviously hero points. Think about it for 1 second. Villain points is destroying a robot, so, Hero points is saving somebody. Midoriya just beginning to think about it. As soon as that does happen, a piece of debris does actually go flying at somebody. Midoriya turning his hand and blasting it out of the air. As soon as he does, the person turns around confused. You're welcome for that. What? What was that? Yeah, you would have gotten hit by something. Oh, thank you. Now I have to play hero. Now, after some time, eventually the 0 pointer does make his presence known. And then, Midoriya does actually begin to run with everyone else. As soon as that does happen, you do have Ochako, who does get stuck underneath a piece of rubble. Now, Midoriya, whenever he does see her, he actually does think. He scored pretty good on the villain points, so hero points. I'm really about to do this, aren't I? Fuck it. Midoriya just running, thinking in his mind, just don't die, just don't die, just don't die. Now, as Midoriya is running and he's just thinking, the fact that she's in trouble means that this is serious. So if the pros don't intervene, she could die. But then again, if he intervenes, he can get some points. And pros would probably have to save both of them. So, let's go with that. Now, Midoriya, as soon as he is directly above Ochako, he does begin to try and lift up this piece of rubble. With his hands, he begins to use the quirk. The thing beginning to move and actually try and push up. Midoriya is telling her to use her quirk to get this thing out. As soon as he says that, she is actually able to somewhat turn her hand and touch onto the piece of rubble. As soon as it begins to float, Midoriya just grabs her and basically pulls her out. As soon as that does happen, there is the giant foot that is directly flying down at them. Midoriya just throwing out both of his hands and telling her to hold on to him. Her wrapping her hands around him and Midoriya blasting out 100%. As soon as he does that, him and her get sent flying away, smashing into the ground. The 0-pointer going to come up with his other leg. As soon as that does happen, there is All Might. All Might simply just stands there as he stopped the leg from crushing them. As soon as it came down, surprised to see this young man, asking him exactly why is he here. Oh, that's a bit harder to explain, All Might. But, did I do good? Excellent, young man. In fact, I believe that you would make a great hero. As if. That was Midoriya's internal monologue. He didn't say that out loud. Now, after this is all said and done, Midoriya does actually go to head home. However, Ochako does actually thank him for his help. However, she did actually have one question. How did you know what my quirk was? Oh, it's a thing I do. Well, I was sort of doing my own thing. I was going around and I did see you. You tapped onto a robot and it just went up, right? Yeah, that's my quirk. Okay, I could see why you weren't really confident in it then. Huh? What are you talking about? Well, before. Hey, don't get me wrong, my quirk's not any better. But hey, the ability to... Wait, can you make things... You made things lighter, can you make them heavier? No? Okay, I can see your problem then. Huh? But hey, if you want to train your quirk, just give me a call. And I might be able to help you. What are you talking about? Well, let's just say that I have a specialized friend who actually was able to help me do what I can with my quirk. So he might be able to help you do what you want with your quirk. Besides, I think I know your type. My type? Yes. Midoriya goes on stating, saying that he is someone like her. So he knows her very well. She doesn't want to be a pro hero for helping people. She does it because she needs the money, is he correct? Her not saying a word. Midoriya picks her apart, piece by piece. Basically shredding her apart, and then throwing the pieces to the wind. And Midoriya doesn't let Ochako talk. If he lets her talk, then she is going to simply try and say something. As soon as it gets done, he writes down his phone number onto a piece of paper, hands it to her, and walks away. And he has set a little bit of a trap. Another ally. Ochako was left completely uncertain about anything. About her quirk, herself, and her motives. So exactly what does this mean? Her trying to figure it all out while standing there, staring at his phone number. Now, with that being said, I do believe that I would be able to leave this part off of here. And I do hope you guys enjoyed. Now, if my breathing was a bit heavier during this recording, it's because I've been having some problems with my asthma. And for those of you who are aware of the current state of things, as of the time of uploading, I do need to go get tested tomorrow. and it's gotten to the point where I actually do believe I need to get tested. I've been feeling very bad, so I'm gonna go do that and hopefully I do not have it. Anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed. Have an amazing night.